There we go. Right then. Well, first of all, welcome. Um, Thank you for joining us for this call. I've been really looking forward to sharing a little bit more about self-doubt and that it's a very, very common feeling. It's something that I think everybody experiences. It's just a question of whether they say it or not. So you're definitely not alone. But by being here, you're doing something proactive about it, and that's the difference because the whole self-doubt and rewiring that takes action. That's the key here. It's about actually doing something a little bit different. So we're going to jump straight into it. What we're actually doing, if my button's working here. So what we're doing, we'll have a quick recap of those four videos. For those of you that haven't seen the four micro videos, they're about 2 minutes long. I'll share them in the follow-up email with this video as well. Q&A is just very casual. Anytime you want to interrupt, ask a question as we're going, feel free. And then a few little bits as well that I want to add in too. So as it says there, one of my favourite quotes, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. So it's all about the mind. So I'm looking forward to taking you through some of that. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy right there. So I'm going to give you some practical tools today. But as I mentioned, it doesn't come with the knowing, it doesn't come with the webinar, it comes with from here, taking it forward and actually doing something a little bit different. I'm just going to admit someone into the room here. Welcome, those of you that have just joined. We have just started, and we're what we've said so far is that if you experience self-doubt, you are amongst most people in the world. It's just you've got the courage to actually acknowledge it and accept it. And by turning up here, you're taking steps to actually change that. So I'll just give you a moment to read that quote there, and then we're going to dig in. So it's all about doing something a little bit different, and that's the things that I want to share with you today. So a very, very quick intro, because this is not about me, but I just want to give you some context into where my passion comes from in helping people with this, because I'm certainly one of those people as well. But I've worked with different techniques over the years that have helped me with mine. So very, very quickly, 20 plus years in L&D at strategic level, working across Middle East and Africa, along with my formal qualifications in learning and development and psychology. I've got various certifications. So there's insights profiling, which is personality assessment, which I absolutely love because I think understanding more about ourselves and other people helps reduce conflict. That's something that I specialize in. And then I've got coaching, hypnotherapy, yoga, but more so is I prefer to share about my passion, which is to empower others to be the masters of their minds. So early in my career, I stepped into leadership without the support that I needed and I burned out. But as a result, that experience sparked a fire in me. I decided that I would not let circumstances or my own mindset or gaps in that as well become a barrier. So I went on to create learning cultures where people are not just developed, but genuinely supported through change, growth, and pressure, and achieving high results, but without the burnout component, because it actually is possible. So I've since worked with companies like Airbus, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Chalhoub Group, LG, on all sorts of transformational projects that include psychology and mindset, making things happen and stuff like this. A lot of you will be familiar with my other role, really, which was setting up my company in wellness. So I've done a lot of retreats, 80 plus retreats, can you believe? A lot of those are mini retreats as well, but residential as well, and then helping people one-to-one through coaching and hypnotherapy. So I came full circle back into the leadership corporate space in 2020. And you might guess why. something big happened during that year, and a lot of companies were asking for my support because I had these two worlds where I could understand the corporate world, but I also could sprinkle a little bit of wellness into there as well. So ultimately, my aim today is to help you remove those pesky obstacles and become a master of your mind and live the life you truly deserve. And that might sound big. It's definitely big for a half an hour webinar, but really what this is it's reminding you that it's the small steps, it's the subtlety of those mind shifts that make the most difference. So take away the overwhelm and just start one step at a time. I've put there as well, I'm a mum and a stepmom. That's also another big role in my life as well. We could talk about any of these things for a long time, but this is about recapping on those 4 little videos. So I asked you in the videos, do you think that your self-doubt is something that is just fleeting? Like, let's say something happened and it's knocked your confidence. Or would you say that this is something that is coming up for you regularly? And just have a little reflection, a quiet reflection to yourself. Because if you think also it could be a one-off, I'd like to ask you, do other things shake your confidence though? Do other things throw you off? Even though there might not seemingly be a pattern, there might be a pattern. So it's just something to be aware of. And as a reminder, you know, we are humans. And so negative thoughts and feelings can come and go. But it's how you also define whether that is something that is lighter level, like it's just happening, but you move through it, or it's something that's a little bit more deeper rooted, you know, and we'll come on to that in just a moment. But yeah, it's just that kind of pause. Where am I in this? And a reminder that self-doubt happens to all of us. You're not alone. Even in high performers, we just don't necessarily see it. So it might show up as over preparing for something. And you might tell yourself, that's okay because I'm just super organized. But deep down, it's fueled by anxiety and fear. Now, that's definitely something I can relate to. I used to over prepare for absolutely everything. And I think there's 2 approaches to this. You might be new at something, so therefore you want to get it right and you need to get that new process in your head. But if you find yourself doing something regularly that you know quite well and yet you still over prepare, that could be a sign that you've got panic or fear, and that can come from self-doubt. So it's just recognizing when you're doing it. Another one could be micromanaging if you're in a role where you're looking after other people or even your family. And that again comes down to that control. We could talk for hours on that. I completely, relate to a lot of these things. So the first thing really is acknowledging, what are the symptoms or patterns that show up with yourself, and then working with that. We'll come on to that. All right, so why does it happen? Why are we built this way that we end up having this self-doubt, and we're always having to, reframe ourselves and rewire? There's one thing I want to reassure you of here is that it is a very, very natural process. Okay, so we are wired this way for a reason. So I have this picture of this bush here, and in back in the day, we always use the story of the saber-toothed tiger, but I like to use this story of, imagine you were foraging and there was something rustling in the bushes. Like these days, if you're living in country where there's no wild animals, then you'd be like, oh, it must be like a mouse or a little blackbird or something. Back in the day, it would be very risky to assume that that was something cute and nice. You would always have to assume that it was danger, because if you assume it's a mouse and it's not a mouse, you're dead. So, this is hardwired into us. And while we've moved on so much in many ways, our physiology, our biology hasn't. So it's within us for safety and security. But what we need to do in today's world is remind ourselves that that's not the case. And that's the whole sort of rewiring our brains to see, actually, there's something else going on here. So when if you ever do something that's really positive, you've achieved something, you might naturally just say, oh, that was just luck. Again, that's another very subtle way of our brains going, yeah, no, that's that's not okay. You're still not good enough. You still need to work harder. It's just a very subtle modern version of what I've just described there. So it's not a personality flaw. It's not like you're a negative person or anything like that. It's just we need to work a little bit more at rewiring that it's not actually a survival situation, and we need to retrain, as it says there. So again, if it's a pattern, it will fade over time. We just have to put that little bit of work in, and it's not just with our mind work, it's actually doing something that's slightly out of our comfort zone, but not to the point where it's really panic inducing, but just little things that build our self-esteem and build that kind of hit of you've achieved something, and that really does improve your self-doubt. Okay. Right, I've just given you 5 examples here, and on the video, in the post that goes with the video, I've given 10. I'm just going to run through some of them here, and some of them maybe will really resonate with you, but it's also really worth finding your own, because the key is to tap into what you're saying to yourself, which is the second video, which we'll come to. But I just want to run through why these are more effective than too much toxic positivity. You know, you want it to be realistic, because you're trying to tell yourself this person inside who's trying to protect you from these dangers, and you want it to be realistic. So it's okay to feel unsure. I can still take action. So if you're feeling like the self-doubt's making you freeze, you can say that's okay, it's normal. And why this works really nice is because it makes space for fear without letting it paralyze you. So it's not saying, oh, I'm confident and I'm great. It's going, yeah, it's okay to feel like that sometimes, but I'm still doing it anyway. And it's that real, like, sort of, you know, inner leadership. So the second one, it differentiates discomfort from danger or failure. So yeah, I might be feeling like that, but it doesn't mean it's wrong, you know, because sometimes we can get confused with our intuition as well. So if you're saying something negative to yourself, like the third one, you know, you could be saying, I wouldn't do that if I were you. That's going to be really dangerous. You're going to be embarrassed, you know, and you can stop and say, yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, you have warned me. I did do it in the past, and it actually turned out really good. So it's stopping the spiral of the self-doubt and what you're saying to yourself and rewiring it. Okay. I'm going to keep my eye on chat. Just feel free to just drop me a note anytime or ask a question. Otherwise, I'll just keep going, because, of course, we've only got a little time. It's just a little boost to get you thinking. So what am I actually saying to myself then? Have you ever actually stopped and asked yourself, have you ever taken a moment to journal all so-called bad thoughts and get them out on paper? Because this is really effective. You know, instead of running away from our so-called dark thoughts, it's really good to out them. It feels good to out them. You know, it feels great to have a rant and a rage sometimes, doesn't it? So what you can do with that is you've got information, you've got intel on yourself, and that can be really useful in rewiring. And the more you practice that, the more you notice when you're walking down the street, you don't just get those dreaded feelings, you get the words that are coming with it. And that's when you can catch yourself and rewire it. You might remember in one of the videos I mentioned, when I first became a trainer, I was like, why am I doing this job? Because I'm so scared of public speaking. I am really not interested. I don't understand. I mean, and obviously it became my career in the end. But I remember the first night before my first training, and I was in panic, and I felt so negative, and I felt really unconfident. And I just had this moment to myself, this insight, and I heard what I was saying. And I said, so that's interesting. If I swap that around then, and if I actually felt, so you're telling me if I felt confident and positive, I wouldn't have this awful feeling. And I was like, yeah, okay, so let's start saying to myself that I'm confident and I'm positive, and I worked on that. Of course, it took some time, but after I stood and did that, my self-doubt faded a little bit more. I know that's a huge step, and sometimes there are huge steps and we can't help that. But while we're training ourselves, we can do the little steps that build up the confidence as you're going. Now, I don't know if anyone's seen this before, but I use this model a lot in psychology. I absolutely love it because it's by someone called Bronfenbrenner's, and it's the ecological systems theory. And it's really linked to values, belief systems, what we're saying to ourselves, what we've picked up in terms of other people's beliefs, what they've said to us as children growing up. It's your individual system. So it's your immediate family, it's the school you went to, it's the street you grew up on, it's the culture, it's the city, it's the country, it's the era that you were born in. That all kind of adds up to who you are today. And sometimes those beliefs or those values don't fit anymore. And it's about identifying, you know, is this holding me back? Is this belief system holding me back? Is this what someone said to me? Whose words are these anyway? So when you catch yourself saying the things you don't want to hear anymore, first of all, it's not true. And second of all, whose words are they anyway? And let's reword those. So I'd have a think to yourself, what are the words that are replaying? What are the stories that are replaying in your mind? And a little tip here would be just to say, when you catch it, that's amazing, because many times it just goes on replay as this like subtle background noise. But if you manage to catch it, try not to judge yourself at all and just go, yes, right, I've caught myself. I can do something with this. And even just saying stop in your head, just stop and replace it with something neutral, like I'm learning this as I'm going. Again, not toxic positivity, but yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, I slipped up today. That's okay. I'm going to try again. And it's those affirmations and those resets that stop this process. It's so subtle. The mindscape is very, very subtle. So it's these small things that make a massive difference. And that's what encourages you to start in the first place, because we see it as this massive mountain that we need to overcome. And actually, it's the tiny little things that we do each day that challenge ourselves. So you're just thinking, how can I interrupt the loop and create a new track in my head? Yes, Penny. I will share those phrases afterwards. There's a few in the videos as well, so I'll put the link to all the videos and the bits of information that went with the videos too. Remind me if I've said anything extra that I've forgotten. All right, so the imposter syndrome is next when it comes to self-doubt. We all get this. It's a very, very common thing. And again, I could talk a whole hour on imposter syndrome. I'm not going to do that, but what I am going to do is talk to you about some practical tips that you can do to work with the imposter syndrome. The one thing I want to say here is just to remember that feeling like an imposter just means often that you're stretching into a new territory. So again, it's just that little bit of, oh, this is unknown, or I'm not sure about myself here. This is unfamiliar. Can I do this? And sometimes maybe you need to work on it, and we'll come to that in just a moment. But is it fear or is it feedback? When you're feeling imposter syndrome, because we do a lot around going, let's remove imposter syndrome. But sometimes there might be a genuine hint here, and that hint might be you need to learn a little bit more, or you need to just understand, right? It's coming away from that toxic positivity and acknowledging, where is this fear coming from? Is this a gap, or is this, I can definitely do this, but why am I feeling this fear? So one of these needs compassion. One of these approaches needs more compassion, and the other one needs action, right? So it's determining, why am I getting this feeling? So the few tips I've got for you here is a proof bank. It's really, really good. List down. I mean, if you've ever done this for a job interview, or you've just listed all the things you're proud of. It doesn't always come easy for everybody, but the more you get into it, you go, actually, yeah, I've done that. I've also done that. Do you remember when I did this from the beginning and I set this up, and that was the first time I'd ever done that? And it doesn't have to be work-based. It could be the first time you traveled overseas by yourself or something. Now, if you do struggle with this, I would really recommend speaking to somebody that really loves you and knows all the things that you've done, is really proud of you, and can easily list things off for you. And that comes to that second point, supportive network. I'm very, very conscious of this. So I always set up people around me that will either I need free reassurance. Sometimes I just need pure reassurance. I'm feeling so like vulnerable. Just tell me I'm good. You know, sometimes I need people that will challenge me. I'll be like, hang on a second, play the devil's advocate. Have you thought of it like this? And I think, no, I've not thought about it from their point of view in that way before. That's interesting. They're not just going to say what I want to hear, you know? And then I might need somebody that will motivate me or push me or challenge me. Maybe it's a different type of mentorship, and you set that. You set who those people are in your life, and you go to the people who will be that for you. And again, it comes back to that self-awareness. What do I need? Because reassurance can be a trap as well for yourself and your self-doubt. I've recognized this in myself a few years ago that there was a few people I was always going for reassurance, and now I'm like, I still do that sometimes, but I'm very aware if I'm over asking, because then that means my self-doubt, my self-esteem has dropped. So I need to maybe start back with some reassurance and then wean myself off it and go, right, okay, thank you. But I need to come back to myself and build my own confidence back up again. And then the final one is this imposter syndrome coming from a place of I actually don't know how to do it, but the fear is stopping me doing it. So then it's like, okay, just eat the frog. If you've heard that phrase, there's a book about that, do the thing you don't want to do, get it out of the way, and you will just feel so much better instead of it draining your energy all day, all week, all month. It's a skill. It's a skill to develop, and it's not easy. But if there's something you can do to close that gap, to build that confidence, then do it. But you have to ask yourself, is this a skills gap, or is this just me being down on myself? As I said, one needs compassion, one needs action. The final one was leading with quiet confidence. So we have to get better at remembering how far we've come. We just talked about that. But confidence doesn't mean knowing everything. So this is a slight twist on this. It's staying grounded when you don't know. Like I said, maybe there is a gap that's impacting your confidence. Learn it, research, develop it, fix that niggle. But our physiology when we're in fear can impact as well. So our voice goes high, we go high pitched, or we talk too fast, or we get fidgety. And one thing I can say here for those of you that know as well that this is a big thing for me is the breathing element. It's so simple. I've been doing it a lot recently. 1 minute, closing our eyes and just breathing, it completely shifts my day. It completely shifts my day. We don't need 5 minutes and 10 minutes. If you can build up to that, then please take it, because it will be even more impactful. But I promise you, if you just literally consciously turn everything off, close your eyes and breathe for a minute, you will feel dramatically different with your physiology and your body to move on. So just to stick to time here, I just want to finish here. I'm just going to quickly check if there's anything else in chat. Some little tips on this yet. So give yourself permission to pause. If you're in a situation where you feel panic, someone's asking you a question, someone wants an answer, someone wants to know what you've decided, you do not have to answer straight away. You never need to answer straight away. You can have some back pocket phrases like, that sounds really interesting. Let me just check my diary. Let me have a think about that. I'm not sure how that lands with me right now. You never have to give something straight away. I think this is a really important question. I like what you've asked here. I need to go and think about that for a little bit. Or I completely agree that this is important right now, but my capacity is quite full. Leave it with me and I'll get back to you by the end of the week. So we don't need to have that panic. We don't need to have that ramble panic. We can take a deep breath. We can let people see we're having a think. We don't need to respond immediately. And this I don't know yet is really, really powerful. So what that means is you will come back with the information, but it's absolutely fine to show that vulnerability. I don't know. I actually don't know. Let me come back to you on that one. And it's a leadership quality as well. But just have that accountability to come back to it. All right, so I just want to finalize here that self-doubt doesn't vanish because you've read about confidence or you've had, a chat about it. It certainly starts the motivation around it, but it starts with the doing. When you do something different, when you start to think something different, it doesn't magically evaporate even when you hit the goal. Self-confidence can build, but sometimes our expectations rise at the same time. So start to think about, from today, use this motivation to ask yourself, what is the one thing that you think you'll try? I'd love to hear from some of you as well on this, but I'll just go through a few more questions to get you thinking. So the opposite of not doing anything, of not changing, of not trying something, of not putting yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone each time is staying still. That's the opposite. And when staying still, we overthink. And with overthinking, we sometimes just go, oh, I just hope that my self-doubt changes. I hope that my self-esteem increases. But I promise you, unless you actually action something today, and that's the other thing, it's like today, have a think. What is the one thing that I could do? It could be that you've got a meeting and you really want to ask a question, but you feel nervous about it. Feel the discomfort anyway. Take the breath, ask the question. It will build your confidence. So something like 5 to 10% out of your comfort zone, just a small stretch. It's enough to trigger a change in your neural pathways without it going into panic. Only you know what that first little step is. And it's like exposure therapy. Some people work with, let's just say you're scared of heights, right? Some people work with extreme. There's no rights or wrongs. If you decide to do a bungee jump, I would never do that. It's not something I ever want to do. And I don't even think it's about being scared of heights. It's just I don't want to do that. But it works for some people, boom, let's just deal with this right now. And for others, it's like, okay, let's go to that hill if you're scared of heights. Let's go higher, let's go further. Slowly, slowly, slowly. It doesn't matter which way, everyone's different and each situation is different, but it's knowing what feels right for you. So have a think. Is it shifting? Is it starting with what you're saying to yourself? Is it that tonight or today you'll jot down some of the things that you're saying, and then with that you'll write the opposite in a very neutral, comforting, but not in a toxic positivity way? If you ever need any help with that, I don't know whether any of you know, but I do the recordings, the hypnotherapy recordings as well, to help you rewire that and listen to it over and over. So have a think, and let me hear from you. You can come off mute or you can drop in the chat with just the few more minute or two that we've got left. What can you say is a thing that you'll do, you'll try?
For me,